Hi, David Odell here with Odell Complete Concrete. This is our first day on the job site. And what we have here is an area that has a lot of bark in it. We've got some random stones laid out as a pathway over to that shed. And then in this main area, it was just some rocks set on plastic. The plastic is a weed barrier, basically. They had a bunch of decomposed granite and some sand that they were initially going to fill that up with. But we went ahead and used all the gravel that they had, the decomposed granite, the sand. We used it for the base. We're going to pour a concrete slab here instead. Instead of a decomposed granite base, we're just going to do solid concrete. The dimensions of this is going to be 15 by 15. Also, instead of those stone paths going to the shed, we're going to do some 3 by 3 stepping stones. We're going to do about 5 inches in between, and also between the other stepping stones we're going to do about 8 inches. 8 and 5 inches is the magic numbers that we're going to be working with to fit everything in. Some random stepping stones going from the existing patio to the new patio area, and from the shed doors to the new patio area. And I'm building 2 stepping stones at a time because I've got 8-foot lumber, and we put 2 2x4s in the middle, and that'll be the gap in between them. We put those about 5 inches apart. So I build them all the same initially, and then it's just a matter of laying them out and making them fit so we have even spacing in between them. Now we're just initially laying it out where we have to cut the plastic, remove the bark. So now we're just measuring the spacing here, getting that about right, painting it out, cutting the plastic, pushing the bark back, because we're going to reuse that bark, because bark decomposes and you always have to constantly fill with bark. So we're just going to thicken the bark everywhere by saving the bark we're removing. Thus, we have to go down a little bit into the dirt here because we don't want these stepping stones to be higher than everything else. We still want everything flush so it's an easy surface to walk over. We don't want trip hazards, in other words, like one stepping stone higher than another or higher than the patio. We just want to keep everything on the same plane, nice and flush. Everything in this backyard slopes to the back property because there's an alley behind this property. There's the front street, and then there's also an alley. And you can see there's a door back there for RV or whatever, but everything drains to the alley. So here's some of that decomposed granite. Actually, this was the sand. He had bags of sand and granite. We just used it all. This is our reinforcement going in. This is 3/8 diameter fiberglass rods with a coating, epoxy coating around that actually bonds with the concrete. This is pour day. Now we're just oiling up the forms. That way they'll come free from the concrete without damaging the concrete when we go ahead and when we strip the forms. That sprayer's not working real well. It's about time to get a new one, I would say. So this little landing outside the shed, we went ahead and doweled in 3/8 inch holes, 3/8 inch fiberglass rods that we just drove in there. We're doing a thickened edge, 2x6. So we have a thickened edge, and then it thins out in the middle. 4 inches in the middle and 6 inches on the edges. This particular concrete mix is a 3,250 psi, and it's straight cement. Doesn't have any fly ash in it. Also, I added some fiber mesh into the load when it arrived on the job site. Here's the first day for Avery on the rod board. He's giving it a try today. He's working with Juan on the other end. And I was in the middle, kind of watching and using the shovel and pulling up the fiberglass in the middle there. But what I noticed about Avery when he was rodding this is because he's real lengthy, he's got the long arms and long legs, that he really didn't, you know how we're having to go back and forth with the rod board because it's not quite long enough to go across. Well, he didn't have to move his feet. He was able just to reach with his arms in one direction with the board back and forth, whereas Juan actually had to take steps. So I thought that was so interesting that I actually, after we got done laying this down, I started measuring his arm length. And what I found out is his arm length is about 58 inches. And then I measured mine and the other guys, and they're only running about 54, 55. So he's got quite a bit more reach, which really came in handy. Here's a 3-foot wood bowl float, and that's fitting in there really nicely. So here's the purpose, one of the purposes for that bowl float. One thing, it knocks your rocks down and brings the cream up. But also because of the width of it, it's 4 feet, you can see where the low points are. Like when you ran it over, you can see where the bowl float didn't touch here. So you know it's low there. So that means you got to sprinkle some concrete back or try to find a high spot somewhere else to drag it into that hole. So that's kind of the idea of bowl floating multiple times, because the more times you do it, the flatter it's going to get. On our joint pattern for this, our crack control lines, we're going to just do one each way. So it's going to be, we'll end up with 4 squares on that big section, 7.5 foot squares. Juan broke out the 2 foot wide walking edger, which means when you edge this, you're pretty much done because it covers the whole area. As you edge all the way around, you're left with everything being hit. Some edges are much more narrow than this one, so you'd end up edging it, then you would have to trowel the center. But with this one, you just edge it, and you keep doing that, you know, over and over, and you get to a point where it's ready to broom. Because we're going to be doing a non-slip broom finish on this. Now after everything got bowl flowed a couple times each way, and we've ran the edger all the way around, now we break out the Fresno, then we Fresno it. The difference between the Fresno and the bowl float is one is wood and the other one is steel. Here's the lines where we're going to be putting the control joints in. So we just snap a line with a dry line that makes a mark in the concrete that you can follow. This is 7.5 feet apart. We'll end up with 4 squares, 7.5 feet. The joiner that we'll be using, initially we're going to use a 2.5 inch deep, 3 foot long cutter. And then we're going to follow up on that with a 3/4 deep, 1/2 inch radius will be your final. So when you have your joiner this long, it's easy to keep it straight. And then also because of the depth, it separates the rock really deep in the slab. That assures you that it's going to crack in that location. Even though when our finished product will only be 3/4 deep, we broke the aggregate 2.5 inches deep. So That really assures you it's going to crack in that location rather than just randomly somewhere else besides on the line. Now we have the fiberglass funny float going on there, kind of knocking out the edge marks, the joiner marks, flattening it out. Now we go around everything one more time with the joiner walking edgers. Then you go with the funny trowel, knock out all the lines. Then after that, you're about ready to go out on it with knee boards and do your final pass. After we knee boarded it and troweled it all out, we gave it about 5-10 minutes to breathe out, dry up a little bit, and then put the horsehair broom on it. The nice thing about these stepping stones being separated, they'll never crack because they have that freedom of movement. Have it, the finished product. Really looks nice back here now, actually. Really nice layout. All the stepping stones actually line up with one another. If you were to stand back and look at them, one side or the other line up with the next one. And they're all parallel with each other. Well, thank you for watching my video. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit the notification button. That way you'll get notified as soon as I upload the next video. Thanks for watching and have a good day.